Not yet.
Not yet. So this is the IDSQ review meeting for January 26, 2017. We're going to look at sample content / demonstration theme. And I think Keith is going to introduce that, or are we waiting for Lowry?
I can. Do you want to wait for Lowry a bit more? Wait a bit longer? I'm happy to just go and screen share and start.
It's going to be presented, so I think go ahead and get started, and then.
Yep, that's no problem.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, hopefully my screen is working as well as my audio.
That is incorrect.
Not yet.
Oh
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, yeah.
Great. So, just a bit of background. We were working on. I was working with Kevin O'Leary and Laralan on sample content, and we were looking at creating some sample content for the farmers market, which was a tutorial, as you know. And so we were actually at that time, we were just sort of piecing together just exactly that example content, but we thought it would be really interesting to also create some design visuals and some actual content. So this is content that we are creating ourselves, including just going out and snapping images from local markets. We're quite fortunate here in Hampshire. We've got loads of markets happening every weekend, pretty much, in local towns. So I thought I'd go out and take some shots and see if this scenario, this farmers market scenario, could be designed and put together in a way that would be convincing, would actually deliver an experience that was able to show off both Drupal looking great and also start to show off some of its capabilities. So this is design sketch work that we've been doing just to accompany that work. And also I've extended on that work just from when we were having some of the meetings recently regarding just whether or not the idea could be sort of played with in terms of, we've got the farmers market, but there's obviously been a conversation around whether that's exactly the right scenario to present what we're trying to do. So I also suggested that perhaps we could play around with a publishing scenario, and still based on a similar content model where we're playing with the idea of there being content around recipes, around user submitted content, perhaps even some example of community type functionality in Drupal, but mainly just presenting great looking content in a vibrant and a good looking way. So the idea is just to sort of show off some of the design work that we were literally just sketching, just ideas that might put a bit of a handle on this and actually get some kind of understanding of how this might look. So when we were playing with the farmers market content, we were also trying to decide how the sort of the tone of the design might work, and how much of the theme needed to deliver the design versus how much of the content needed to deliver the design. And I think we were feeling that certainly from the farmers market perspective, the way the content needed to work, certainly, obviously, we needed great imagery, great text, but the theme also needed to get very involved in actually how this looked in terms of being a convincing farmers market that's sort of for the local, kind of for the locals, really, and just get that kind of local vibe about it. And I think Kevin described the feeling of it that might feel a bit more parochial. But we wanted to play around as well with images that we could source and therefore fully own, and not just play with stock photography. So you can see that the idea is actually just to create content where we've got lead images, lead text, and we can play around with different content types being promoted forward. So we've got featured vendors, recipes, and there would be relationships, being able to play around with relationships within the content itself as well. Okay. And from another idea perspective, we thought about whether we could look at taking a publishing magazine as a potential example scenario, because with this, what we could do is actually play around with the content itself, delivering much more of the design, look and feel. So we could actually mock up a magazine so that you get this real world, heavily designed product almost. And we actually play around with the idea of there being content based on back issues, being able to subscribe to the magazine, meaning that we could actually give examples of forms in Drupal, and also building a site around which contributed content could exist. So you can see that we've got the typical promotion of articles coming through to front, and we've also got the idea of subscribing to a magazine. And I think we'd probably be able to do have some really nicely presented examples of user contributed content, perhaps, and even maybe mock up some kind of example rating system around that. So you can see that in this example, we're bringing forward some taxonomy terms, but in both examples, you've got a hierarchy of content where effectively you can be playing around with there being a magazine that has child articles, or perhaps in the vendor, the farmers market example, we've got effectively vendors, and then they've got recipes that might belong to their, to their particular area of the site for within this structure here. So yeah, that's kind of the basic intro to what we've been doing, just playing around with a look and feel, and yeah. What do people think?
Stunning. Like, holy crap. It really looks good. Like,
so do we want to talk about the designs? We also have one document which we have created to list out ideas that we want to demonstrate. I can send a link if we want to take quickly look on that as well, but we can also discuss layouts before we go into that.
just one sec. I think Dries is having some audio issues. Can you try again? Oh, no. So we got Keith, but we have no Dries.
Wow.
That's terrible.
Wow.
Oh.
That's not good.
No. Oh, I don't know what to do about that.
No, but you.
It
Yeah,
looks
yeah.
stunning.
Yeah,
Yay!
I was saying, I was thinking you were channeling your inner dreams.
Wait, how about you're going to be better at the accent? So can you do Dries?
Het ziet er echt fantastisch uit, inderdaad.
Roy. Yeah, sure. Let's see your document.
I should say, obviously, these are not suggested as final designs. We're really just offering these up as a kind of inspiration behind the project, you know, just to get ideas flowing. It's really important that we obviously react to the goals of the project, which is to show off the depth and capability of Drupal core alone. So I've also gone on to do some wireframes that actually show off how we might be able to both play with some really creative content layouts, with perhaps using some view modes and obviously views itself, how we might be able to surface ordinarily boring looking filters, but actually do something really creative with them. And obviously, as I said before, just really emphasizing the relationships between the content. So recipe is a great example where you've got really good structured content. You know, there's so much opportunity to show off how we can have both just free-form content from the CK editor, but also structured fields and the relationships of that.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Dries, can you talk now?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I just wanted to say it looks really nice. Awesome job. My only question, and you may have answered it. I don't know. I restarted real quick. Is that it uses a lot of features or showcases a lot of features that are not in core. You know, like ratings and mailing list subscribe things and.
Yep.
Just
So I was actually hoping that we might well be able to do this all with core. So in terms of the ratings, I think we might be able to. It's perhaps not the normal approach, but I think that we could. I think if you were to use a select list, it's a workaround of 1 to 5 on a piece of content. Then you could certainly do ratings that way potentially.
Yeah,
We don't have to get into.
Yeah.
I guess we don't have to get into the details as long as you, I think, design with what we can do, even if you have to be creative, right?
Right.
I think that could be like an editor's rating that the editors provide when they highlight the user-generated content, or the subscribe. I think was supposed to be a form where you like send in your data to subscribe to the magazine, the printed magazine, as opposed to a mailing list. So that's would showcase the form capabilities in Drupal core, the contact form with fields and stuff.
Yeah. I think that the problem with having an email subscribe, for example, I think is just, as you say, without going into the details, we probably need a module just to get the form showing up in blocks.
What I'm thinking is, what is the best kind of feedback you need right now? Do we want to choose between one of these? It's not either or, maybe which one to do first, right? What I'm seeing is that the farmers market example is, I think as you said it already, it allows but also needs a more specific design language to make it a farmers market, whereas the publication could be a bit more generic. I think they both have comparable opportunities in showcasing features and content types and Drupal strengths. Do we want to choose? That's a question to all of us here, but.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's one of the key things from a design perspective. The theme is delivering a lot of that look and feel to the farmers market to get that kind of genuine local feel. Whereas with the publishing side, we can get much more of that design depth and excitement into the content itself, giving you a theme that could easily be refactored if it needed to be, I guess, or more easily, I should say, refactored if it needed to be. Yeah.
So for the publishing side, do you already have an example of that, or did I just miss that?
No, it uses recipes, but this is the the publication, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
I personally like the publication. I think it's seems like a more common use case. Just my initial reaction. But I'm not trying to make a decision. I'm just sharing my one input. Do you guys have a preference?
Yeah, so I think the magazine leans a little bit more towards really the kind of content heavy or content kind of focus of Drupal, whereas the farmers market is more of a kind of a smaller site, or I guess. So yeah, in that kind of very broad spectrum, I agree. I think the magazine has a little bit more of an innate kind of connection with what Drupal generally does.
Yeah, that's how I was looking at it versus from a visual design point of view.
The only issue with that, I agree with that, by the way, but the only issue with the doing a publication site is if you flip back here, the very first thing I'm going to want to do when I install Drupal is like, ooh, I want to replace stunning souffles with awesome kitties because I'm going to totally turn this site into my cat blog. And we wanted to try and get people away from thinking that way. But like, if this was WordPress that I was installing and it looked like this out of the box, that's the first thing I would start. It would go into that block. I would edit stunning souffles and make it, awesome kitties, make the picture of muffins into a picture of a cat. I'd change in this month's issue to, welcome to my site. I'd start doing things like that. And last time we talked about this, that was a goal we explicitly did not want this to have. So, I don't know if that
Fair
means
point.
anything, but, versus the farmer's market is much more clearly like, this is very much a farmer's market. You're not going to want to use any of this. So blitz it and start all over.
I don't know. I could see people also try to move the farmers market site to something else.
Oh, they will.
I wonder if there's anything to prevent them from doing that. You know, like
We could not give them user one permissions.
Right.
Content editor permissions. Or something.
right.
No, really, we could, and then they couldn't enable modules or anything.
That would help with eradicating the impression that Drupal is limited.
Yeah, I think the magazine design is, as Keith pointed out, uses imagery from content rather than from the theme. So like most of the imagery that you can see, especially now it's zoomed out, is coming from the content, and the other parts of the theme are like just some colors, and it's not really visual. And for at least the farmers market as designed included a lot of visuals that were coming from the theme and not necessarily from the content. But I think it like either could be implemented either way, maybe. But yeah.
Yeah, this is more specific.
Yeah, like the menus, how they look, and how the grayish brown bar with the images and stuff. It's more specific to the use case. So it's easier to take the magazine and make it something else, I think, and not entirely impossible or not too hard.
Yeah, I'm also wondering, because I mean, it's always hard to evaluate something based on what you see, but also I think, so for the magazine, you could obviously tune it quite a bit more to be much more in tune with, kind of other standard magazine type websites. So I think there's still quite a few elements, especially with Core, that you can do to maybe get kind of a little bit more accustomed to that use case without losing functionality.
Because the publisher's example, I was thinking a lot about the BBC Good Food Guide that's over here, which is actually a magazine monthly, but with the supporting site and the user contributed recipes and so on. Now their design is very heavy, really very heavy. So they have a lot of their design presentation is really baked into the theme just as much as it is the. I can't believe I said baked in. It's really as much a part of the theme as it is the content. So I think you could push it further, definitely.
All right. Well, echoing back what Roy said a few minutes ago, what do you guys need in order to feel empowered to move ahead here?
Larry, what do you think? Or Keith, of course. But
I definitely heard everyone being like, "Holy shit, this looks great!" So that's plus.
No, I'm not hearing you, Larry. Sorry.
Oh no, we're not. Oh, bye, Laurie. So I heard that. I also heard that the publishing is more appealing because of its because even if the default content is farmers market, it's a more flexible skeleton to which we can put a bunch of different types of content, which is nice. And then Larry, now?
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, that's better. I was wondering why everyone was ignoring me, but that makes sense.
Oh.
So I set, at least from my perspective, there is two things that would help us if we could agree on the fact that we are building this kind of a demo. So this is a concrete example, like what the demo could look like, potentially. And other thing that would help us definitely would be that we would choose on one of the topics so that we could focus on figuring out the content model and figuring out the specific plan for one idea. Because right now, it's kind of for us that we are proceeding with two ideas.
Which is a lot
so
of work.
So it would make it easier.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
I would
so
be
those
interested.
two would be the first things.
Yeah. And I think helping make that decision or suggestions would be to see to outline a bit of the content model and maybe a sequence of the features you would like to add to each of those. As in, what does the minimal viable farmers market mean in features and content types and content model? Same for the publication. Maybe we can define one or two like demo killer features that we want to showcase, so that we not only for the design, of course, we want to make we want to look at the design and what we want to achieve there, but also on the demo itself of the functionality.
So that's why we have the list. So we have created a list of things that we think are the most important to demo on the new installation profile. And it doesn't necessarily relate one or the other ideas, because we believe that we could demonstrate all of the ideas using either of the ideas.
Okay.
So that was definitely something that we wanted to hear your input on, because of like we have tried to prioritize these things, but we are not very good at prioritizing what are the most important features of Drupal in this sense. So it'd be very interesting to hear like the product management's perspective on like what are the most important features for us to demonstrate.
Good. Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. I think we had talked before that it's important to demonstrate the things that make Drupal amazing compared to other stuff. So views, CCK, I'm still calling it CCK. I'm old school.
CCK.
I know. Flexinode. But demonstrating different types of views, demonstrating different types of content, and also that you can have relationships between content. I think all of that is really good. I think what I liked about the publication, I'm sorry, Keith, would you be able to flip back to the...
Yeah.
What I liked about this one too is that you have the notion of subscribing to things, which gets into some of the notification features. Potentially we could also build this out so that there's like there's a companion mobile app or something that uses the REST API or whatever. Like this seems to have a lot of possibilities that lend itself well to multiple publishing scenarios, not just a magazine about food or whatever. So
it's also got just to point out that it's also got that whole kind of content layer, but it's also got we can dive into the publisher behind it as well. So you get that more corporate side, and being able to bring out some of those more fundamental but basic, admittedly, features of the site. So, the whole kind of, here's our editorial team, that whole kind of side behind it, and potentially promoting other example publications if we needed to. It's got that kind of depth where you can stretch it further.
But I think we should stay focused on the MVP. And the MVP is right now, Drupal literally tells you, do you have no content? That's the only thing that's you install. And so, go gung-ho with features the first crack out. So.
Yeah.
For me, the answer is a little bit on who the target audience is, and I'm not sure if we described it or specified it, but if it's a site builder, let's say, I would agree with the things Angie mentioned. There's a lot of unique capabilities around CCK and Flexinode and views. But if the target audience is more of a content creator, let's say, like somebody that has to manage a website, I would show things like, how you update one of these recipes, and have a content workflow with, publishing states and that kind of stuff. So is it the site builder or is it the content creator? Because they're very different.
I think the last time we discussed this, we were thinking about those people that would not be able to use the demo framework or something, but an internal evangelist or an internal person who wants to convince the team or the boss to show that, hey, we can do this with Drupal. And yeah,
that might require us from doing both very well.
What is both here?
This showing off how easy it is to edit content using Drupal, and also how flexible it is to modify things using Drupal. Like I think the main characters that we described was the technical evangelist, someone like evaluating Drupal. And I think like convincing that type of person might require both of these things, because they want to change the content that they see very easily, and they also want to be able to make any changes that they need for the structure of the site.
Yeah, I think in both cases we have to find, it's a balance, right? We have to do a bit of both anyway.
Yep. Yep.
Do we want to decide something next time? Do we want to, what do we, how do we open up to more feedback, or? Because the one thing that is.
You guys want the decision on, farmers market or food magazine, right? That would be helpful today.
Yes.
Yeah. So can we just do kind of a quick straw poll, like everybody shares their favorites, and see if there might be consensus?
Sure.
All right. I'll call names if that's useful. Angie.
Publication site.
Boyan.
Publication site, yeah, I would say.
Gabor.
Publication site.
Keith.
Yeah, publications.
Laurie.
I think the publications.
Roy.
Farmers market.
All right.
Hey.
Come on, Roy.
Deep, deep, deep.
I think for me, I don't have a strong opinion actually on it. I like them both. I think they're both pretty. I think they can both serve. They would both be massive improvements. I tend to favor the food magazine personally, because I think a lot more of our users that are looking for a solution will be able to relate to it, and if they are going to convince their boss, it's helpful to show something that is closer to what they need. And I would say if you want to avoid people using it as a starting point, maybe there's another solution to that. I'm not sure which one, but I feel that we should go for the food magazine, given that everyone but Roy voted for it. Is that okay, yeah. Roy, or are you not going to be able to get passionate about that?
No, the thing actually, so the idea is actually food magazine, right? It's not magazine, but food magazine. Is that true?
That's the proposal, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, because that helps, because the farmers market was a very specific choice, which was also one of the tactics to maybe avoid bike shed, right?
Right.
It's farmers market, this.
Yeah.
And this magazine, if you say it's about food, yeah, it could work. Yeah. I want it to be about cars. No, we aren't going to be about cars. Okay, no, that doesn't make that much difference then. Okay. I would hope that the design can get a bit more personality then, because that's also what I liked about the food market.
Yeah, I think it's worthwhile to note that, it needs a little bit more exploration. I feel like the farmers market is a little bit more fleshed out, also in terms of kind of thematic design ideas, and the publishing side could still use a little bit of that. Yeah.
Yeah, this really is just a few hours work.
It's the second idea. It looks like it, I think. Hey, but let's go for the food magazine and iterate on that. We can't go wrong, because both will be massive improvements, as we said. So happy to see the food magazine.
Go ahead.
I think the next step is anyway going back to the basics of what we are demoing and the structures and etc. So we are not going to work backwards from the design, but we need to step back a few steps and work out the fundamentals of what we are going to demonstrate again.
Yeah, I was about to say exactly the same thing as Gabor. So
can you reiterate that? I was distracted by Vanessa. So we need to reiterate on the data model in light of the change of the example, or
we need to iterate on what do we want to demo on this installation profile. What are the most important things to build a demo on? So this is the part where we would like to hear, like, what are the most killer features that we have in Drupal? What do we have to demo when we build a demo using Drupal? Like, what are the things? And that's why we have the Google Doc.
Yeah, and that's why you're in the planning phase of your initiative, basically, right? We approved the idea, and now we are going to flesh out a plan, and that this is part of that plan, I think.
Yes.
I don't have any offhand suggestions for it right now. Besides the obvious ones, right? Relationships and views and etc.
Yes, I would say we can easily agree on that. I think that we need to showcase views and the sort of the killer features of Drupal, the things that set us apart.
So I sent Google Doc again. So at right now on the number 1 place, there is content creation. That seems like the most important thing on this list, that you can create content at all. And the second thing is entity references. Then third thing is VisiBug. Fourth thing is comments. Fifth is user profiles.
So I think views is basically missing in this top list.
But yeah, so do we want to actually, when someone uses Drupal for the first time, is the first thing we want to show for them like the views UI?
No.
we don't want to show them that at all, but we want to show them what a site looks like when it's utilizing views.
Yeah.
We also don't want to show them the entity reference UI, but we want to show them what it looks like to have
related content. Yeah.
And I don't know why there are numbers next to these, but I would definitely put different views displays as like number 2 and entity references somewhere way at the bottom. Because entity reference is something we could always add later. User profiles and reference profiles is something we could always add later. But I think if you talk about what the core functionality of Drupal is, it would be content creation, it would be WYSIWYG, it would be different views displays.
Field.
Sorry?
TCK.
Yes. Yeah, but yeah, especially that one, because if there's a published publication, a promoted publication on the front page that shows a longer teaser, and we find out exploring that longer teaser is actually part of the same content type, but it's showing a different field there instead of in that normal listing over there.
Yeah,
that's the stuff I want people to find out about.
Yeah.
Yep.
So view modes is
fields, view modes. Yeah.
So I personally would do this art exercise less on which modules do we want to showcase and more around user stories we want to showcase.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, we want to showcase, putting articles in various displays or something. Like as a content author, I want to be able to create featured content or something like, you know what I mean? I would do it like that. How we do it is sort of an implementation detail. I would rather hear us talk about the key benefits of Drupal we want to communicate in that first 30 seconds, because that's really what we're talking about.
How do we, let's say, what's sort of the user flow here? So like I install Drupal, I select this install profile and bang, arrive at this fully fleshed out website, right? Like what would the user do? Wouldn't he or she start clicking? Like is there a way we can guide them? Just trying to figure out the best, what we can do, because it may influence what we decide, because they may click on the thing that's most in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
Versus.
So one of the ideas was to use the tour module to show how some of the things probably on the front page are built. So we could actually explain like what is the different features made out of.
Yeah, and I can also imagine a bit differently themed block that has some actual instructional text, right? So, yeah.
Okay. So if it's a tour module, like in the tour module, we can, let's say, orchestrate where they have to start, or is it still where the user clicks? I haven't tried the tour module lately.
No, we can orchestrate. We can like put notes to HTML elements basically.
Right.
And
So
then
it's
like a bubble would show up there and explain them what's there. But once they click there, then if we have a tour of the page that they clicked on, the tour would show up, etc.
Right. Well, so if you're completely new to Drupal, and maybe I'm off track here, it's like, all right, welcome to Drupal. You're logged in, therefore you can see a bunch of things. I don't know. Like if like imagine you walk into this thing and there's like you don't know anything, right? So it's like the basics are editing a menu or editing a piece of content and learning about some basic things there. Maybe changing a menu, or I don't know. Like there's also a lot of terminology that probably could be new to some people.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree that we need to resolve that in the MVP. Like if we have something to showcase Drupal out of the box, even if it's not discoverable by itself, I think it's an improvement.
Right.
And we may even need to improve the tour module or some other tools to help with explaining what we have.
Right, but even like something like a block, which we don't even think about, could be a thing that we need to teach people.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think if it's the tour module and we can orchestrate the experience, we should probably start with some of the basic, most fundamental things in Drupal. Like the fact that there's a user, that you're logged in, that gives you certain privileges, that there's things like blocks, and blocks can be different things.
Yeah, and I can also imagine that if there's like 5 publications or 5 articles in the sample content, and the 5th one has a title of, and this is the one you want to edit. Right. That we use some actual content itself, right? WordPress had it like where the slogan for the site was just another WordPress site. Well, that's a thing you want to change just by what it says. So that also helps with discoverability of things.
So it's more of an interactive tutorial, what you're proposing. Like, next, let's change the title of this.
Yeah, well, you can give clues inside the content itself, I think. It's definitely something to look into.
I think the major part is actually, which I think we had that in the D7 UX work as well, is that editing is a lot easier than creating. So a lot of this will just be about people going there, clicking edit, and going like, that's how it works. And, being able to learn a whole lot from that.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. So once we have the content there, then editing it is simpler than figuring out how to get there in the first place. Like if you have those views and blocks and content pieces and fields and everything.
Yeah, it will be a bit trickier for the site building bits, right? Where you discover that it is a different content type. How do you provide a pointer to that? But yes, content creation and editing should be doable just by having people edit existing stuff.
Yeah, but that's a way we could teach them about, entity types and stuff like, now you edited a recipe. Now let's try to edit this with some other content type, different fields.
Yeah, I think that so the tour module is definitely not there yet to provide that kind of like maintain a state about where you are and what you did, and that kind of thing is not available at all.
It's a per page thing, huh?
Yeah. So it's global per page. It doesn't depend on your state. So we would need to figure out some ways to Like with this, there's some technology development to do there if you want to do this. I'm a bit afraid if we make this a requirement that's gonna delay this a lot. So I think it's a good eventual goal, but I wouldn't put it in the MVP personally.
Yeah, to me that's a nice could have, maybe even a should have. The must have, I think that's the next step. We need to figure out what of this is must have, and I think must have is at least 2 content types displayed in at least 2 ways. You know, like a grid view versus a list or whatever, you know what I mean? An entity reference field somewhere, and comments, I don't know, like, but it should be something really basic like that. And then we can add more to it later. But personally, I once again want to remind everyone the current out-of-the-box experience is literally you don't have any content yet. So we could just like, even if we just had 2 article nodes that shipped by default in Drupal, we would be light years better than we are. Even if they were unthemed, and even if they were drawings my kid did, it would still be the current experience. So
0 to 1.
Yeah. What would be cool is to break this down, because like the mocks that Keith was showing are gorgeous and beautiful, but I think we could take in a way, I totally get the it wasn't criticism, but the comment that the farmers market like looked a lot more like, ooh, dang, they spent some time designing that, you know, and the other one was more like, oh yeah, that looks pleasant, you know, and not so much like, oh, this is clearly a food magazine. But in a way, I think that's fine, because we can figure out those generic components, get those in first, and then as we go along, you know, flesh it out more. Because if we can get this thing in as an experimental profile, that was our goal, right?
Right.
And so if it's in as an experimental profile, probably won't be 8.3 at this point unless we can commit it by Monday. But
no.
Yeah. So, but we can commit it early in 8.4 and then continue making changes to it throughout the release cycle. So we don't have to nail this 100% in one go. And in fact, it's better if we take it slower and break it down into manageable chunks. So one thing I would be interested in is the team's thoughts on, you know, you spent a lot of time studying this. You spent a lot of time working with the documentation team on what they feel is most important stuff. You spent a lot of time, you know, sort of justifying this example and things like that. Like, what do you feel are like the first, second, third iterations of this, you know, and how small could we get that first iteration so we still get a lot of benefit, but we don't have to tie it up, you know, on a all-encompassing Alexa-powered tour module that inspects your fridge and lets you know that it's time for your water supply. Or, you know what I mean? It's just like, that's cool, and I'd love to have that, but I definitely don't want to block, you know, you don't have any more content, you know, on that. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So I think I could postulate on what I think the must-haves are, but I think it would be better to hear your guys' opinions about that. And the only request I would have is to phrase them less like this, like less like entity references and things like that, and more like, what's the features in plain English that you want to be able to showcase? Because the people who are evaluating this, we think they'll be technical, right? But they might only be as technical as someone who can also install WordPress in 5 minutes. So they might not be like, you know, we're not making this for like a Neil Drum, right? We're making this for like a Donna Benjamin or something. And I'm not saying anything about Donna Benjamin's intelligence. I'm just saying she's not going to dig around under the hood to figure out how everything works in her first 30 seconds of using it. She's going to want to eyeball it quick and be like, yeah, this looks good. So think about what those features are in the work that you've done around this that we should have, and it's not even worth committing the patch decor until we have them, versus other ones that are like, if we don't have this, it's going to suck, and we should definitely make this one of the second patches that we commit after this first one is in. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I would just another idea, and it doesn't necessarily conflict with the previous ideas, but I wonder if we were to pick one thing, like content creation, and we said, all right, we're just gonna pick this one thing and we're gonna try and figure out how we optimize that for demo purposes before even wondering what are all the other things we want to demo. But like, if we pick that one thing, what's the best possible experience that we can create for demoing that and maybe there's some exploration on different demo techniques. You know, like maybe like what Roy suggested, like suggesting through design and titles, or maybe it's tour module, or maybe there's another thing.
Are you saying like
understanding how we want to do a demo of a feature could guide what we demo and you know, and how we demo it, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
So
I'm still trying to wrap my head around how we would do that most effectively.
Are you maybe also thinking like, let's try and nail at least the 60% for content creation before looking at site builders, etc.?
In a way, yeah. Like, you know, like I guess what I'm trying to say is like, in a way, maybe it doesn't really matter what we pick, whether it's content creation or maybe we show, you know, changing a block. It's like, how do we guide the user there, and how do we provide an experience, if that's what we want to do, to make a useful demo? Or do we just want people to click on something? You know what I mean? Or is it not clear? I'm not expressing myself that well. I don't think.
I think you're saying that let's find out different ways how we can design for discoverability.
Yes, discoverability / demo ability.
Yeah.
Whether it's a block or content creation or something else, how would we do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's basically, I guess, a scale, right, of to what extent we guide or don't guide them, and kind of have to make a choice in that to some extent.
Yes, and I think whatever we choose will, I think, impact what else we can demo. Can we demo 3 things or 50 things? I think it really depends on some design choices around the visibility / discoverability / demo technique. Because we may end up saying there's no guidance whatsoever as a one extreme. And then it's maybe just a matter of having features available in the site, or the other extreme is it's a completely guided tour, almost like a tutorial style, you know, interactive tutorial kind of thing, which I think is a different approach. You know, maybe that's just too much work. Maybe it's just.
So what Demo Framework does, I think, is they have a demo guide that's a document that you can use to walk through different things. And they also have video recordings of where to click to make it more effective, right?
I think that's another great approach.
So that's an option to like.
Sorry, say that again, Gabor.
So I think what Demo Framework does at Acquia, the people on Demo Framework, is they have a written guide on like where to click and how to use the demo most effectively. And they also have recordings of the demo that you can watch and like see where, if you click here, that's the boom, that's something nice coming up. If you click there, no, don't click there. We probably know what to do this last one, but yeah, so like that's a possibility as well, that we can then like translate the video and stuff, like crowdsource that. But that's, I think it's a lot of, either way, it's a lot of work. So I think we should decide primarily if it affects the content itself and the way we present it, because whether we write a tour or we write a demo guide or we record videos, I think those 3 would use the same content structure. But if we want to put guiding things in the content, that's different, I think.
You know, maybe step 1 is we just build the site.
Yeah.
And then we worry about how to demo and what to demo.
Yeah, that's my feeling as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, let me attempt. It's a little less stressful this time because we have an actual recording of this meeting. But here is the comment that I'm attempting to write summarizing this. So we talked about this on our weekly Ideas Queue meeting. It might take up to an hour for the recording, blah, blah, blah. Thanks to KJ, who led the meeting and presented 2 possible directions for the starter theme content, which is Farmer's Market website and Food Magazine. Both examples were stunning, but there was consensus around pursuing the magazine use case since it is more common to what Drupal users need. We also discussed target audience install profile, generally that this is a relatively technical evaluator. Next steps are to decide what's needed to showcase the killer features of Drupal. There's a Google Doc for this at blank. We talked about breaking this down into a must-have, should-have, could-have list of high-level functionality. And then alongside flesh out what the ideal demo experience is of each of these things, and then through that arrive at an MVP. And then I'd put a sense of the type of thing. Any killer features as user stories, not module. Okay, I can make that change. Any other change?
I think you can actually lend from some of the user story work that was happening at that camp last year, because I remember they wrote that like 200 of them.
Yeah. So. Do you know where those are?
Oh, no.
Cyberspace.
There somewhere.
In cyberspace. Okay. Well, if you find them, just post an issue. And I'm putting this comment on the create a new user-facing core theme idea issue. Is that correct? Like, for you guys, where is the central issue where you guys are coordinating efforts? Is it still?
Yeah, so that we have 2 issues at the moment, and I was just about to ask: should we try to merge them into one?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Should we try to merge those default content and the user-facing theme ideas into one instead of having 2 ideas? We would have one.
Possibly, yeah.
Because it seems like it's more, it's one idea now that we have a demo, which includes the theme and default content, and it starts to feel like the default content wouldn't happen without the theme because. Yeah, I mean,
it definitely could, but the theme makes it look so amazing. Like, I can't believe how good that looks. It makes me like, oh my god, I want to use this thing. It looks pretty. Anyway, so
they built it in WordPress.
No, but I do think they're connected, because I think as a whole they form a value proposition disconnected from each other. They don't offer in any way the same value.
No,
so here's what I think we probably need, though, because also bear in mind that part of these plans and prototypes is like we're gonna just have to have the conversation about the default content, and that could happen independently entirely of a conversation happening about what colors to use in the theme or whatever. You know what I mean? So what the workflow initiative has done, which is not necessarily a model we want to go with, but what they have done is they have like a meta that's about the workflow initiative overall, and that's where they post high-level summary updates and stuff like that on the initiative as a whole. And then each of the actionable tasks underneath that, they break out into their own meta issues. So they have a meta issue for content moderation, a meta issue for workflows module, things like that. So that could be one approach where you have like the overall arching, everyone subscribe to this thing because this is the initiative homepage, for lack of a better word, issue. Where we could post updates, and then if someone has comments specifically about the theme or the CSS or stuff like that that's clearly theme related, they could do it in one place. And if they have concerns that are clearly about a bug in the install profile or something, they could do that somewhere else.
Yeah. So I will create a meta for out of the box.
Out of box experience, I think, is what I would call it, because it really is about the experience in it, and it touches on content, it touches on design. I think it also touches on maybe possibly new features and functionality. You know what I mean? It's like it's kind of all of that.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good. So for now, I'm going to post this to the theme issue, just because I can find that one.
Yep.
And then you don't have to like rush creating something right now. But then, I think going forward, that might be a good way to organize things. And then from now on, we'll do it like that. So, so
can you maybe a little end note to that? Just no. Can you when you post a comment, say something to that so that?
Oh, sure.
That you suggest when we start a new issue.
I'll say so. Going forward, Lowry 3 eyes is going to. That always screws me up, by the way. Is going to create a meta issue to track the overall, Evaluator Experience Initiative, better name to be determined. And we'll be posting updates there. So the last question I had for this team is, so this was great, by the way. This was amazing to see the progress that's happened and stuff like that.
Yes.
So it feels like you guys have some work to do now. What do you think you need? Like, should we meet again in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, or like how long do you think it will take? Just so I can kind of, I have other initiatives I got to slot into these calls, and I just want to, figure out when's the next time that it makes sense for us to talk.
Can we do UX meetings as well?
Yeah, we can do anything.
Yeah.
These meetings are mainly, if you need to talk to Dries, that's what this is.
Exactly. Yeah,
if you don't need to talk to Dries, then we can do lots of other meetings. So. Meetings for everyone.
Lots of meetings. Yeah. A meeting for you, and a meeting for you. You get a meeting.
So the next thing we are going to work on is the user stories, and it would make sense to get feedback on that at some point, but I don't think that's going to be a blocker, at least for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So like 2 to 4 weeks until we get feedback should be fine on that.
So we're not scheduling anything now.
Okay,
No.
So I guess just do what you did before and ping me when you feel like you're about ready, and then we'll either get it slotted in that week or the week after, or whatever works at that point. So.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Also, Dries stopped off in the meantime, but he wrote in chat that he has to sign off. He'll just drop, so he does not have to interrupt you all, but it's thanks and it's awesome progress. Just for the recording.
Yes.
From Dries.
All right.
Well, I can only echo that. Well done, team.
Well done, team.
Good job.
Also, for the recording issue I keep talking about is 2759849. That's the create a user-facing core theme issue, and then the other one will be TBD. Whoa! And then Roy blew out all the lights. Good night, everybody.
Perfect ending.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you
Thanks
so
all.
much.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.